Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar to connect with the Adobe Connectionist. And I just wanted to give a couple of housekeeping items before we get started today. We are recording the session, so if you miss any portion of the session, you'll be able to revisit the recording. We'll make sure to send that out via email later today. And also, as you're ready to ask questions to any of our Connectionists, please feel free to just go ahead and type them into that Ask a Question pod located on your screen there, and we'll get to those questions as they're coming in. And I'd like to thank everybody on the Adobe Connect team here. We've got several folks: Peter, Alistair, Shelby, Brendan, Eric, Hunter, Kyle, everybody that's joining us helping answer questions today. And without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and get started. And Peter, are you there? Hi, Peter.
Hi, Alna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine.
We'll go ahead and just jump right into these questions since we've got tons and tons pouring in here. And we'll go ahead and get going. So our first question coming in is from Emily, and she's asking, how do you control microphone options for participants throughout your session?
Well, that's a great question. There are a number of different ways that you can do that. Perhaps one of the easiest things for me to do is to switch over to a quick screen share, and I can show that in a meeting room I've got open here. So let me just share my screen for a second. And there we go. So what you'll see is that here I am in my meeting room, and I've got my audio settings that I can adjust right here. Today I've got it integrated with one of my audio providers. I could hook it up to my Meeting One, my Intercall, my Arcaden account. But if I want to perhaps just use voice over IP, I can turn this off, and in this case I would just be using speakers and microphones. And I could opt this, if I choose this option, I can actually allow my participants to use the microphones without me having to do anything extra. So if I do this, anybody joining my room will immediately get an option to turn on their microphone. Now it doesn't start until I start the meeting audio. So once I start that, you can see this option shows up here, and now I connect my audio. And every participant, because I checked that checkbox, every participant will have that same option. I could go through and select from different microphones that I might have attached to my computer in advance, but this is how I would enable that. So in this case, maybe I don't want that. I may want to make a switch here, so I'm going to stop the meeting audio. The other option, though, before I go too far, the other option is to enable single speaker mode. That's, and I know there's another question that's come in about this, that's a way that I can prevent echo, because if I do this, then I can only, one person at a time will be speaking, and therefore we're not going to get some of the feedback that might be there. It is important for people to recognize that when they do have their audio turned on, that they should be muting their speakers perhaps, or wear a headset is even better. If you have a headset, that's fantastic, or headphones. It's a fantastic way to reduce echo or prevent any of that feedback loop that might happen. But let's stop the meeting audio for now. I'm going to go back into my audio conferencing settings. And in this case, I'm going to allow the participants to join not only by microphone, but by phone as well. If you have an integrated audio provider like we do, this will allow people to either dial in or dial out to themselves, and also if they want optionally to choose their microphone and headphones. So you can mix and match, and that's the nice thing. We do bridge the audio between the two environments. If I only want people on the phone, I can do that too. Simply turn that option off. Now people will only come in through the phone. I can also say I do want to broadcast the phone audio. So that means that even though people won't be using their microphones, if somebody just wants to listen, they can do that. And that's sort of what we are using today here on this call that we're all on. Alna and myself and Alistair have all dialed in using a telephone call, but the audio is being broadcast to everybody through voice over IP so people can listen through their speakers. So we have all of these options available to you. You can also set it up so that the audio just starts automatically whenever you open your room up, so that you don't have to think about turning it on, it just happens. Or you can choose the option I have here, which is to show me that dialogue. Show me this dialogue whenever I open up my meeting room. Then I may want to make some adjustments and then say I'm ready to go, and I'll just hit done. So these are really the options. If I turn this back on, I'm going to turn this one off for the moment. And now I can say I want to start the meeting audio. If I've done this, and then you can see it's got a thing where it will call me, or I can say I want to listen only, or I can dial into this call, or I can say I'm going to use my microphone if it's available. In this case, I'm just going to say listen only, and you can see it's telling me all the information about my audio. So it's telling me that I'm in listen only mode. I can go back in at any time. You can also see that because I'm the host of the room, it's telling me that I'm hooking up my room into the audio bridge. Basically my room is calling into the call so that the audio that's taking place on the phone is going to be broadcast in the meeting room. And now it's telling me it's all ready to go, and I am broadcasting. So at any time I can go in and say I want to connect my audio, things like that. And I can also pause the audio broadcast temporarily. This is a nice option. Sometimes if you're not ready to start your meeting, but you want to have people on the phone before the meeting starts, this is a great way to do that. You can pause the broadcast. You can still continue to use the phone and prep with your co-presenters. And as soon as you're ready for the meeting to start, you simply choose that option and away you go. So this is also, if I want to give participant microphone rights after I've started the meeting audio, I simply choose that option, and now those rights will show up for everybody. So those are a few of the options that are available to you for integrating your audio in your classroom.
Great, thanks. And then I've got another question from Joanna here, and Peter or Alistair, either one of you might be able to answer this one. How can I use a curriculum with Adobe Captivate and Adobe Presenter within Connect?
Alistair, you want to grab that?
Sure, Peter. Thanks for the question. So there are curriculums inside of Adobe Connect that support what we refer to as blended learning. That means that you can combine live virtual classrooms where you're delivering content in person as an instructor to students, along with on-demand content. And that on-demand content is typically in SCORM or AICC format. Two of the tools that we have here at Adobe for creating that content are Adobe Presenter, which takes your PowerPoint slides and enables you to add narration over those slides, as well as Adobe Captivate, which can create simulations as well as demonstrations by recording your screen and giving you the ability not only to add narration and audio, but also quizzes to test somebody's understanding. So a curriculum inside of Adobe Connect can be created out of a number of different courses, and those courses can be presenter files, Captivate files, live virtual classrooms. They can actually be anything that you can upload to an Adobe Connect server. So they could also be containing things like a PDF document or something that I use very often, which is videos. So inside of Adobe Connect, in the training module, you can create a curriculum and then simply point to all of those different elements inside of your content library as you're creating the curriculum. So point to your Captivate content, point to your Adobe Presenter content, point to your live virtual classrooms and your PDF documents. And then you can create a specific order for students to take that curriculum so they can go through step by step. You can enforce that order, or you can have them take it in whatever order they'd like. And you can make that curriculum available to your students. So rather than just giving them a single course, you're creating an entire curriculum. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thanks, Alistair. And let's go to Kate's question here. Peter, can you cover some best practices around breakout rooms and how best to use them, as well as start the breakouts, maybe end the breakouts, as well as audio?
Sure. So let's just switch over. Sorry, I tend to share my screen a lot here, and in this case, simply so I can show what I'm doing, so you can see the user interface a little bit. So I have a meeting room here, and I'm just going to take a moment to log in from another computer so that I can show you what the experience is like for the participants. And if you just give me a moment, I will get into this. But and I just created this room, so it will just take me a moment. So I'm going to come in as a guest, and I'm going to be really orange. Oops. Okay. All right. So I can see that my participant has shown up here, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can focus on the attendee list, because the attendee list is the thing that we use to manage breakout rooms. So, and I've just started this brand new room, so it's, I can see I've got one participant and I'm here as the host. The breakout room capability is this second icon here in the attendee list, and if I switch over to breakout rooms, you can see that I have the option to start my breakouts. I have an option to evenly distribute the people in the room across all of the breakout rooms I've created, or I can add another breakout room. So at the moment I've got breakout rooms 1, 2, and 3. I can remove a breakout room at any time by closing that, or I can add them back in. I can have up to 20 breakout rooms, and I can have up to 200 people in my class and distribute them across those breakouts. If I go over 200, then it's really not really a type of thing environment for it. So we do limit it to 200. We hope that's enough. But you can see that I can have as many breakout up to 20 and as many participants up to 200. So let's say I do want to manually put a person into a breakout room. I can simply roll over their name and say I want to assign this person to breakout room 2. So that person will now, when I start the breakouts, that person will go out to breakout room 2. So this is how I would manage my users in advance to get them ready to go into the various breakouts. The other thing I would want to do, though, and I would do this before I would start the class even, is to set up the layout that I want to use for my breakout. So as you can see, this layout has got a video pod, a chat pod, a note pod, the attendee list. This may not be the layout I want my participants or my students to go into. So before I start the breakouts, before I do my first breakout, what I would probably want to do is to create a breakout layout. So I'm going to click on the plus sign down here to create a new layout. This is going to be perhaps my breakout. And I'm just going to start with a blank layout here. So the thing I want my students to do when they come into the room is perhaps I want them to have an area for sharing. Maybe not quite that big, because that's going to be only part of the activity. The other thing I would probably want them to do is to have an area for notes. And if I want them to be able to see each other, maybe the other thing I want to add is a video layout. So I can create the layout in whatever way I think makes sense for their activity. In fact, maybe in addition to the notes, I also want them to have an area to chat. So I'm going to add a new chat window. So now they've got an area where they can share their cameras, they can chat, they can type up notes that their group is doing, and they've got an area to share. In fact, I think I can also set it to be a whiteboard perhaps and say, okay, now I want everybody to use this whiteboard. Maybe I want to put some information in the notes in advance, and I'll do that later. But for now, I've got the room set up in such a way that the participants can join this. When they enter this room, they'll see all these things. Now, the trick here is that I need to be on this layout when I start the breakouts the very first time, because it will remember this as the layout that you want to have breakouts in. Now, since I don't want the attendee list to be visible in this room, as a best practice, what I do is I open up my presenter-only area. And for those of you who are not familiar with the presenter-only area, this is a backstage area that is fantastic for any instructor to have at their disposal, for them to be able to go in and manage the room without their participants or their students seeing this. So I've got a backstage chat. So if I'm in with a TA or with a co-presenter, we can have a back channel chat going on. We can be taking notes, or we might have notes typed up in advance, and all of this is available in this backstage area. You can see I can close or open that backstage area without affecting what's going on in the room, and that allows me to do things prep without any participants seeing that. So the thing I want backstage is my list of participants. So I'm just going to put that participant list back here, and this is where I can go in and do things like get ready. So I'm on the layout I want. I'm going to say start breakouts. And that's all I have to do. I'm going to start it once and then say end breakouts. Once I've done that, I've set this layout as the layout that I want the participants to see when the meeting actually starts. So let's go back here. And I'm going to turn that presenter-only area off. And now, when I'm in this layout and I say start breakouts, you can see that breakouts have happened. I'm now going to go and I can actually drop myself into this room. And you can see that when I go into this breakout room, that this is what the participants are seeing. So in this case, I'm going to, I'm in here. I can chat with the other people in here. I can see Kelly's chatting, so I can say, hi there. I could start my web camera. I can put this message away. You can see I've got some sunlight coming through here, so good morning, everyone. I'm going to stop my web camera now. But everybody in this breakout would be able to turn their cameras on and see each other if you wanted to. Kelly could also be potentially in here doing some drawing, and we would all, everybody in the breakout room would see that drawing. We could all be taking notes. This is our test. Oops. Let's go over here, and I've got test results. And this is, you could have a brainstorming session, whatever you wanted, but all the things that are happening here will be seen by everybody in that particular breakout. Now let's say as the host, I want to be able to continue to move around. So I'm going to have my attendee list. Oops. Oh, I've got to undo this, sorry. One thing that you do need to do is make sure that you you do certain things like managing what's going on in your presenter-only area before you start the breakouts. Let's start the breakouts again. And you can see as soon as I start the breakouts, it does the right thing and puts everybody back in the right spot here. But the thing that is important is that when I end the breakout, so let's say I want to, or I could send a message. Another thing as a host, I can say, wrap in 5 minutes. This message is now broadcast to all the participants. They're all going to see a message saying, wrap in 5 minutes, so they know to finish up whatever they're doing. And now I'm going to end the breakout. So I'm going to put this presenter-only area away, because one thing that you may want to do is, after you've had your breakout session, you may want to share with everybody what people did in those breakouts. And we actually make it very easy, because when you go to after you've done a breakout, you'll see that each breakout room has its own copy of the chat, and we were in breakout 2, so let's go take a look at the chat from breakout 2. So I can call up the chat for everybody to see in the main meeting room after I finish the breakout from any of the breakout sessions. And so if there was a great conversation going on here that we wanted to discuss back in the main room after we finished the breakout, I simply call it up. If I want to show people all the things that were done in breakout 2 on the whiteboard, again, I can call that up now, and whatever was done on that whiteboard is now shared for everybody in the main meeting. If I wanted to perhaps show the notes that were taken, same thing, breakout room 2, let's see the notes, and here are the notes that were typed up. So it's a great way to have people break up into small groups, do this collaborative work, and then be able to bring all the material back together. And that's really the ideal thing. Now, I will mention some things that are not supported in the breakout rooms, because I know there's some questions around this. One of the things that is not supported is that mixed audio. So when we look at the audio conferencing settings, in this case, having both of these turned on is not a great solution for breakout rooms. And the reason is that because we only have one audio line into the audio conference, into the telephone, when people are broken up into smaller groups, the audio is only coming from the meeting area, not the breakout rooms. So anybody who's on the phone can still hear each other on the phone. In fact, many of our partners support what they call subconferencing. So if everybody's on the phone and I move them into breakout rooms, then they'll be grouped into the breakout room. They'll only hear those other people who are on the phone who are in their breakout. And then when you bring them back, everybody will come back together. If, on the other hand, everybody in the room is simply using a microphone, that works too. Everybody in the breakout will be able to only hear those other people who are on microphone in their breakout room. But if you've got a mix, that's something we don't support. It's very difficult to have more than one line, because what you would need is that each breakout room would then have to phone into a special sub-conference. So that's not yet supported. So if you're doing a breakout room with audio, either have one or the other of these two options selected, but not both. And that will give you the ability then for your students to be able to talk amongst themselves, to turn their microphones on and hear each other. All right, so I think that hopefully gives you an idea of some best practices around breakout rooms. Set your breakout in advance. divide your people up across the breakout using the attendee list. Ideally, again, use that presenter-only area to manage your attendees so that you can, if you wanted to, you could even move somebody between breakouts. Even while the breakouts are going on, I could now move Kelly into breakout 3 if there was some reason why I wanted to regroup people while it was going on. So I think those are some of the best practices around using breakout rooms.
Great, thanks, Peter. And our next question is from Randy, and he is asking if there is an optimum size for the meeting room background, images or graphics that we use. He seems to see his getting either stretched or distorted.
Well, I know Alistair has done a lot of work on this, but I think I can, if you want to take that, Alistair?
Sure, or maybe just easier to say it, but Adobe Connect will never distort your background images. So it will often scale them. So you do want a size that will work with large monitors. So I usually aim for around 1920 by 1280, which is a fairly large size. But that's going to look good on every monitor. Now, Adobe Connect will scale your image down if it's a smaller monitor or up, and that might mean cutting a bit off. And the reason that we sometimes cut a bit of that image off is because we never distort your image. In other words, we never stretch it one way or the other. Everything is scaled with its proper ratio so that it looks really good. If we started distorting the image or stretching it, your logo, for example, might get too tall or too wide. We want to make sure that never, ever, ever happens. And so Connect will automatically scale the image, but it will always keep that ratio that you've set. So I aim for, as I said, 1920 by 1280, and bump down the quality. I use Photoshop, of course, being an Adobe employee, but every image editor tends to have a quality setting which you can use to edit the overall compression of that image. You can have that fairly low at maybe 60% if you're using something like Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, and create an image that's nice and large, that looks great inside of an Adobe Connect room. It will never be distorted. It might be scaled, but it will never be distorted. And as Peter might be showing here, you can also pin it to a specific area. So if you do have your logo, for example, in the bottom left corner, under Preferences, as you can see here, you can create an alignment with that image so that it's pinned to the bottom left or to the bottom right or the top left or the top right, so that the element that you want to ensure is on screen for everybody, like in our case, we've got the Powered by Adobe Connect logo in this room. We've pinned this wallpaper to the bottom left so that even if we adjust the size of the room, the bottom left corner will always be visible to everybody. Hopefully that helps answer your question. If you're seeing something that's getting distorted, then I'm not sure what you're doing, because Adobe Connect should never distort your image. Just make sure it's big enough to look good on a large monitor, and it will scale up.
Great. Thanks, Alistair. And we've got our next question from Janet. Can you share some tips to include fun engagement during online classroom experiences using Connect?
All right, great. Well, there's a variety of ways that you can do this. There's and we do have some some people out there who use our product all the time and are truly experts at doing this. So it can be as simple as making sure you provide polls, and that's something that we always like to do in our meetings. We provide some polls perhaps, and let's see if we can. I know we have a poll layout. Have we got any polls here that we could? I didn't set those up, Solna. Should we switch to polls? Is that okay, the poll layout?
Sure, let's check it out.
So here we go. We've got a couple of polls here. So this is one way to engage people. We can ask a couple of polls. What do you use Adobe Connect for? And we can see the type of responses there. And we can share those results. Have you set a custom background in your Adobe Connect room? You just saw me load a picture of a car in and then make that my background. How many people have done that? How many people have tried that? So everybody can participate in this poll. This is a live poll, so we'd love to get your feedback on this. And these are a couple of ways. The other thing that you just saw was also that I moved things around just to keep visual engagement. That's another type of engagement that you may want to keep your students interested by moving things around. And there's a variety of ways that you can do that. I love doing that. I think that's certainly a great way to do this. So let me, now that we've done this, I'm going to switch back to screen share. And I'll show you just a very simple trick that you can do. I'm going to share my screen here. And talking about that visual engagement, what you might have, and I'm going to have perhaps the chat here. I'll put away the notes. I don't want any notes. I'm going to keep it clean here. And so let's say I have a layout that looks something like this, and I'm going to load something in here. Perhaps I'll just use the whiteboard that we had there. So I've got the whiteboard and I've got my camera perhaps up here, and I'm sharing my camera. This is the traditional talking head and content over here. So what I may want to do is create another layout that is a duplicate of this layout, and I'm going to call this Big Cam. And in this layout, and I can move these around simply by drag and drop. I don't know if people realize that you can just drag and drop these layouts. In this one, what I want to do is to have the same content, except I'm going to make the whiteboard small because I want people to remember what I was talking about. And I'm going to swap the places of the pods that were there. So I've got the whiteboard here, and I know it's a little bit hard to see the whiteboard now. Maybe a different slide would be better, but hopefully you'll get the idea. So I'm going to make this big. Take a moment for it to refresh. So now I've got these two layouts where really all I've done is swap the positions of these two things. And you can see simply by clicking on that layout tab, I'm able to swap the position of my camera with the whiteboard. And it could be PowerPoint slides, it could be whatever you want, but the idea is that I'm continually engaging my audience by at least keeping them visually interested. But let's go beyond that. We can go, certainly there's a lot of things that we can go well beyond as far as engaging our audience. So in addition to the interactive things that we can do, such as enabling whiteboard, and that's another thing you can do, is you can actually at any point say, if I've got a whiteboard, even if I've got a picture that I've brought up and I've turned on the draw tools on top of the picture or on a slide or anything you can draw on, I can enable my participants to draw, and that gives everybody in the room the right to, they'll see these whiteboard tools and everybody will be able to draw. Now this could be chaotic, but it can be fun. And you can always revoke the privilege by taking that away. You could also roll over an individual and give them the rights to draw and have them perhaps draw something out. So using the whiteboard is a great way to get engagement. Another, we go beyond that though. There's a lot of other things that you can do to engage participants, and we do that using sometimes what we call our apps. And inside, if you go to Adobe.com to Adobe Connect, you'll see that we have a link called Apps. And this is something that maybe people don't realize, is that you can extend the functionality of your meeting room and add additional things into your room using these meeting apps. So you can go in and add these little apps to give participants the ability to do things that they couldn't do before. So for example, this word cloud one is fun. So I'm going to click on word cloud. It's by our partner eSync Training. They did a great job creating this. And this is an app that I can download. So I'm just going to download this, and I'm going to save this to a place, I'm going to say, okay, view downloads. So it has downloaded, and I'm going to, actually what I want to do is to go find that file. So now that I've downloaded this file, I'm going to jump back into my meeting room, and I'm going to stop sharing that, and instead I'm literally going to drag and drop it's just a zip package that downloaded called Word Cloud. Now that I've done that, I've actually added an app to my meeting room. And in this case, I could make this an interactive session. So there's a variety of things I can do. I can have a group discussion or a chat. And if I do this and say generate this chat, now everybody in the room can start chatting. And as soon as they start typing, the words are added to this. This is a word cloud. now everybody in the room, as they type in their chat messages, will see the words show up. And the more frequently the word shows up, the bigger the word gets in the word cloud. This is a great way to keep people engaged. It's fun. It gets people to be involved. And if I don't want to do that, let's say I want to take some subject that we've been discussing in the class, and I want to use that. So let me just go to a page where I've got, let's see, I'm going to put this away. And I can take any text. So I'm just going to take this text that's here, the description of this word cloud, and copy that. So I can take any text that I've got and go back into this, and instead of using the interactive version, I'm going to use this text version. I can just paste this in. And now, when I say generate, it actually used the text that I pasted in as the content for the word cloud. And we can now discuss which words are coming most frequently and what this represents. But there's a variety of things that we can do, and this is very engaging for your participants. And as you saw, there were other apps that are available. Oops, where is it? There we go. That allow you to do this type of engagement with your audience. And so there's some fantastic ones in here that allow you to see where people are on the map. The location map is a fun one. There's one where people can do hands up and sort of thumbs up, thumbs down. It's very large and engaging. There's a great number of these apps that let you extend the functionality of your room. There's one that lets you play YouTube videos. There's one that lets you monitor tweets and Instagram feeds live in your room for everybody to see. So they go from that to even more engaging ones. So if I'm going to show an example of one that is quite powerful, that goes beyond that, and that's one called EduGame Cloud. And EduGame Cloud is one that allows you to, let me just call this one up. It allows you to add quizzes coming from a third-party system. Actually, before I do that, I should say there are other tools that you can use to add quizzes to your meeting room to go beyond the functionality of just the poll. And maybe before I get to EduGame Cloud, I should talk about one of the most basic ones, and that's Adobe Presenter. Alistair mentioned it earlier, but Adobe Presenter is a tool that you can use to add quizzes to your content using using PowerPoint as your basis, but then adding a quiz. So here I'm in PowerPoint, and I've got the Adobe Presenter add-in or plugin installed inside of PowerPoint, and I can actually add quizzes to my PowerPoint slides using this tool. And you can see there's a variety of things I can do. I can add different question types, multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, things like that. I can set parameters for each of these questions. I can set these questions up. So here's a multiple choice question and the answers. Once I've done that, once I've set up these various quiz questions, I can then publish this content. You'll see the quiz questions are automatically turned into slides. And when I publish this content, I can then add it to my meeting room. So if I'm back here in my meeting room and I want to add this content, I can simply take the published results from Adobe Presenter, pop them into my room, and you can do this by drag and drop or publish directly into the room. And now everybody in my room will see this, and they will be able to take this test independently, so that each student will be able to go through, and they'll go through this exercise. They'll submit their answers. They'll have feedback as to whether they got the answer correct or not. And you can actually turn these options on or off. They'll be able to have these drop-down lists, things like that. And let's see, the palm tree is the symbol on the Canadian flag. Nope, not that one. Even things like this where it's matching, drag and drop, things like that. So I can say, yes, it's Edmonton, Alberta, and Fredericton, New Brunswick, and so on. I would go through and answer these questions. And as I did that, again, as a student, I would get immediate feedback on that. I could submit that. And unfortunately, I needed to get 100% to pass this test. But this is actually all recorded for each student as a poll. And so I would see all these results later And again, that's another way that you can get engagement in your classroom. So I'll come back to EduGames Cloud later. I will show it, though. I'll get it set up while we talk about the next question.
Great, sounds good. Our next question here is from Patty, and I think this might be a good place to have a conversation about layouts and how easy they can be to transition from one layout to another. Her specific question was, how we had a lobby layout and how to use that, and incorporating polls and just other interactivities, like maybe some of the EduGame stuff. But maybe we can talk a little bit about layouts and the purpose of what we use them for our presentations.
It's a great question. Alistair, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one, because I know we all use layouts differently, but yeah, layouts. I find that I showed an example earlier of simply moving the camera back and forth, but we have customers who are masters at this, and they will use dozens of layouts. And I think people are sometimes a little bit afraid to use their layouts. Let me just share my screen again. So as an example, again, I can have a layout where I simply switch between these content types. I'm going to stop sharing that. The layouts that we start with in a meeting room are sharing, discussion, collaboration, and I created this breakout layout. But it's easy to go in and create a layout, and you can either start from the existing layout or create a new blank one. So what I'll often do is maybe have a video layout where I want to share a video, and then I'll put on that a single share pod with a video file. And so I'll grab a video file from my desktop or from somewhere that something I want to show, and that will be the best way for me to share that. So. And again, if you don't use video, again, a fantastic way to get people engaged and with rich content. So, for example, if I want to pull a small video in here, and it could be a video of things that I've done. I'm just going to drag this video of a canoe expedition done by one of our customers where they literally they have classrooms around Florida participate in an expedition that goes through the Everglades, and they do it all by broadcasting over Connect from iPads. So if I wanted to share this with people, I can simply drag that video into my room, and this ensures that everybody is focused on this particular piece of content, because there's only one pod in this whole room, and you can see it's a fantastic experience for people to watch this video. It allows them to stay focused. And I may have a different video, and you can even queue this up. If I want to have people watch from a certain point, I can get to that point in the video, pause it, and if I leave and come back to this, it will actually bring me back right to the point where I left off. So when I hit play, it starts from there. So queuing things up and having a layout that's dedicated to content. I may have another layout where I want people to participate in and again, a whiteboard perhaps. And so in that case, again, I want to have something dedicated to that activity, so I'm going to say add a new, or I'm going to add the existing whiteboard that's there. In this case, I may want to have chat to go along with it. And so I might want to have that existing chat. So that's another one. But one of the ones that, so I can have chat alongside of my whiteboard. One of the fun things that I know our own teams here at Adobe use, I'm going to create a layout, and this is going to be discussion, perhaps, or in this case, I think we already have discussion. So this is going to be chat about. And what they'll do is they'll actually create multiple chat windows. And this is something, I think a lot of people don't realize you can do this. And they'll name them. You can just double-click on the title of any of these things. So what they'll do is we have words that we use at Adobe that we think reflect our corporate identity and that we want people to talk about and to to bring in. So what I'll do is I'll take these chat windows and I'll perhaps use the word that I want people to talk about, and I can have perhaps 3 of these going at once. and then in this case, you could genuine, innovative. I'll just use 3 words here. You could actually have people chat about what this word means to them, and you'll see different threads. You'll see 3 different threads of conversation take place around each of these words, and that keeps it so that the conversations aren't all mixed together. By having 3 different chat windows, you can actually have 3 different great conversations going on. So having these layouts all set, ready to go, I can simply, again, switch to a layout, prepare and start my content from that point. I can easily go to a different layout and have people go through an activity. And again, I can use these layouts. If I want that video activity to take place earlier on, I can just literally drag and drop that higher up. I can rename these at any point just by double-clicking on it and then editing it. And the same thing, I can edit the pods quickly and easily just by double-clicking on their title bar on any pod. So these are just a few layout tips that will hopefully make your rooms more engaging, more interesting. Even as simple as these switching of camera back and forth is another great way to ensure that you're getting your audience engaged and using the layouts to the best of their ability.
I agree, Peter. And from a marketing perspective, some of the webinars that I've done, and as you guys have seen in today's webinar, we had a lobby layout where we had some music playing in the background. We had some open chats. People were telling us where they're from. We had a timer clock on there as a countdown to when our event was starting. So, that was just one layout, and instantly we were able to start our session and change over to, a presentation or session layout. And, again, towards the end of the session, we'll go into a Q&A layout. So just having these layouts prepared ahead of time, as Peter mentioned, is a great advantage for you to take in your sessions and your classrooms.
Great. Now, Alistair, I know you use a lot of layouts. What are your best practices?
So I find customers, and here at Adobe, I use layouts in a couple of different ways. One is very similar to the way that you were talking about, Peter. And remember, these layouts are persistent. So you can set them up once, and they persist forever. So one way is to help you run through your meeting. You can basically have an agenda set out in your layouts. And so as Alno was saying, we've got a layout for the lobby. We've got a layout for introductions in this room, a layout for the presentation, a different layout for the screen share, and a layout for wrapping up. And so this helps me not only guide me through the presentation, the webinar, but it actually creates a new index in the recording. And so we've got an indexed recording at the end that has a little chapter marker every time we change layouts. So it's really easy to find the section of that recording that you're looking for. The other way that we've seen customers use layouts and how I use them here at Adobe is you have a lot of different types of meetings, especially if you're managing people, for example. And so I've seen managers use their Adobe Connect room as their virtual office, and they'll have a layout for their staff meeting, a layout for their one-on-ones, a layout for a product meeting. And so they can basically start the meeting using the layout that best represents that particular use case. So there's 2 different ways that you can use layouts. One, to run through your meeting and create a structure for your meeting. And another way is to set up different layouts for the different use cases that you might be using inside of your Adobe Connect room.
Excellent. Yeah, it's we could probably go on for hours about layouts because there's so many capabilities that are in there. But hopefully this has given you a few samples of some excellent ideas that you could use in your own rooms.
Yes, and just the last point to that, I think the max layouts that I've seen, even though we don't really have a limit to them, was 37.
Well, we've got customers with over 100, I believe.
Yeah. They use them, to even, as Alistair pointed out, you use your layouts almost as your agenda. You go through the layouts, and in fact, one of the things that we've seen some of our really great advanced customers do is they'll actually use an instructional designer to create the perfect room. They'll create these layouts, they'll populate the layouts with content, videos, quizzes, polls, and they'll stage them down. And that layout bar you see on the right-hand side is only visible to the host of the meeting. So, as a host, you will see all of these layouts down here. But so you could put in, if you want, time codes. So you could say that, when I'm over here, I want to switch to this at 05, and so now I know that I'll start on this layout, and then at 5 minutes in I'll go to this layout, and then perhaps at 10 minutes in I want to switch, just to remind people to stay on track and to give them sort of an agenda, visual agenda. But they also, once they've created this perfect room with all of these layouts and all of this content, they can turn that into a template and then allow all of their instructors to make a copy of that room. That means the instructors don't have to go through and do all this. An instructional designer could do this. Somebody who wants to, gets the room just right. Once they've done that, and every instructor then within a few seconds has a copy of this room with all of the content, all of the layouts, all of the titles, everything there, when that instructor goes to present, that ensures a much greater consistency of delivery across all of your instructors. Not everybody is going to be a master at all of these things, so by having somebody who does know Connect really well set this up for them, it means that it's much easier for the instructor to get started, much more likely that they're going to give a consistent delivery to their students. So there's a whole lot of benefits, and once you've created this room, you can reuse this room over and over and over. Whenever you get a new class, you simply start back up at the start layout, and you go from there. So the layouts, again, as Alistair said, are persistent within the room and across multiple sessions.
Thank you, Peter. Great points there. So our next topic here, I've got questions from Carl. Can you share some best practices on uploading or sharing PowerPoints and video clips and, I guess overall using the SharePod? Yes, gosh, there's it is something that I think a lot of people don't realize how easy it is, but that's so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a brand new layout, and this is just going to be maybe for my PowerPoint. And usually what we'll do is if there's multiple people presenting in a session, I may actually make a layout specifically for an individual, and so Alistair now will have this layout, and he may want to populate his content in this layout. So he'll take a SharePod and perhaps load his content or create this layout any way that makes sense for him, and then when it's his turn, he'll switch to this layout and he'll be ready to go. But the way that that's possible is by allowing you to upload content in advance. And so let's say I want to share a document. In this case, I've got some files that I've uploaded in the past, and you can see that they now are in this cloud in the room. I can come to this room and load any of these up again. So let me say I want to load that quiz that I had before. So I can have this quiz ready to go on this particular layout. If I want to add something new on the fly, I can do that very easily. I can just say stop sharing here, and I can quite literally drag and drop. So and I showed this before, but let me just show this this quickly. So if I have a folder full of videos, perhaps, and I've got some MP4 videos, I can drag from that folder into an empty SharePod, and that's perhaps the easiest way to add something. So that's I can do that with any of the video file types that we support. The other thing I can do is say I want to share content and share a document by browsing my computer. So I can go and grab something this way. So if I want to load an MP3 file, perhaps I can simply go and say load this MP3 file, and now it's in my room, and I can hit play and listen to that audio. Normally I would have MP3 files as a very small pod, but this is how we play our lobby music. We populate a pod with just an MP3 file, and we can have our nice lobby music there. The other thing I could do is to use the server to do this. So if I want to, I can go back to my Adobe Connect area. So here I am. And if I want to go to my content library, you can see I've got an area where I've preloaded content into this library. So if I want to add something new here, I would just say I want to add a new piece of content. Maybe within this audio area, I've got some things that I've loaded.
when I load content into this area, and I do that very simply by saying, browse and pick a file, and I would add a file into this area, and it would be there available to me. What that means is that when I go back into my room, let me go back here, I can say, in this case, I want to share, and I want to share a document from my content. So now if I go into that audio folder, there are all the files that were loaded into that area. So it's very easy for me to now call this file up from here, and I've got the dialect exterminate sound there. And I can do that for almost any content that's supported inside of Connect. So now I can say share document from my content library, and there's even a shared content which is shared across all of your organization. So the entire Connect account shared by your organization is here. So I know Alistair has been great at populating things into what we have a Connect resources folder. So I can go here and say, I really want to get a fun wallpaper. So I know that there are some images in here that have been posted, and Alistair's got some fun wallpapers here. So I'm going to go through and say I really want the denim one, and say, okay, that's, so now this wallpaper was in the content library, and now I can use that in my room as my room background. I simply go here and say, go my preferences, and now when I go upload, I can find that the content that's, or go back to that same folder, and I'll find that content and load it in here. So again, we've covered a few things there. So you can load content into the room on the fly, drag and drop, or say share document. You can load content from your library, either of things that have been uploaded in the past or things that you've uploaded into that content tab. And again, where is that? So loading anything into your content library allows you to bring it from a room. And you can also load it from a shared content library. One last trick I'll show is that, let's say I did load something directly into my room, and I want to use it in another room. Well, the trick here is to, let's go back to find the right folder. So if I go to my meetings, and I look at this meeting room that we're in, which I think I called Peter's Training Room. So this is the room I've just created today, and I've been using to do the demo. If I look at the content that's called uploaded content, here are all the things that I've been loading into my room. But right now, they can only be accessed from within that room. Well, if I want to access them from another room, maybe I want that picture of the Citroen 2CV to be available in another room, I simply check it and say move to folder. And in this case, I want to put this into my own images library. So I'm going to say move it to my images JPEG folder. Once I've done that, I can now access that from any other meeting room that I have. So when I'm in my meeting room and I say I want to share that document, I can actually go to my content, go down to that images area, and I will find that file available to me. And I can do that now from any room rather than have the file be restricted to the room I just loaded it into. So that's just a few tips on how do you upload content and prepare your room.
And Peter, one question that came in while you were covering content, is there a specific advantage to using the content upload in the back end versus drag and drop within the SharePod?
Fantastic question. The benefit of using the upload to your directory is that when you populate it in your directory, it's immediately available as part of that directory to any room. You don't have to go through those last steps I just showed you. If I load it up into one room, I then have to go and find it and move it if I want to use it again in another room. If I load it into my content tab in the first place, it's available to all my rooms right away. So a couple of things there that make it easier. Again, I like to manage my content library so that those files are available to me in any room I go into. The other nice thing about loading your content to your room, and this is something that we didn't really touch on, when you load your content versus screen sharing it, because that's really what we're competing against is screen share. why wouldn't I just screen share my PowerPoint? Why wouldn't I just screen share my video? Well, the problem with screen sharing is that it uses bandwidth. So, and I'm doing it today because I'm trying to, I'm actually doing more of a tutorial. If I were just showing slides though, or something else, I wouldn't do that. But when I'm, in my room here and I'm sharing a piece of content, let's say I want to share, something like that still image or something else. So let's actually let me go and or slides. That's fine. And here's something that you can do at any time. You can figure out how much bandwidth your room is using. It's a little trick that may be hidden. If you look at those green bars in the upper right corner, if you roll over it, it says, connection status excellent. If I click once on it, though, it actually gives me more details. It actually tells me exactly how much bandwidth this room is using for my connection. So I can see that I've got a very low latency and that I'm using 0.088 kilobits of upstream data, and I'm 1.1 kilobits down. That's pretty much nothing. So I'm not using any bandwidth. Now I'm going to go through these slides and I can interact with these, and you'll see that my bandwidth has jumped to a high of 1.6 kilobits. And that's because these slides are already downloaded. I'm not screen sharing. If I were screen sharing, what you would see is that I would be using hundreds of kilobits per second, because screen sharing works by, and you'll probably see this in your own meeting, if you want to click on that little icon, you'll see exactly how much bandwidth my screen sharing is using right now, even though nothing is moving. And that's because screen sharing works by capturing your screen as many times as it can per second, usually 6 or 8 times per second, compressing it, sending it to each of you, and then having you open it. It's like a live video. Even though nothing's moving, it's still having to use bandwidth to deliver all of these pixels. That's not efficient. Specifically if you're doing things like sharing a slide. In this case, my slide sharing is using almost no bandwidth, whereas the still image that you're seeing is using quite a bit of bandwidth. So there's a lot of benefit to uploading your PowerPoint. Now, if I'm going to share a video, that's going to use whatever bandwidth. And I saw there were some questions about sharing 2K and 4K videos. This is not really designed for that kind of thing. We don't really put a limit on the amount of resolution you can share, and I'm sure this is a very large file. In fact, when I hit play, we'll see my bandwidth change, because what it's going to do is it's going to start to figure out that, hey, I'm now using 1.6 megabits per second, or 1,600 kilobits. So I've jumped up. Now I'm up to 6 megabits. This is a very high-res file. And it works for people who are have a great connectivity. You can see the quality is beautiful. Actually, you're not seeing the beautiful quality or the smooth frames because you're seeing it through screen sharing. But for me, I'm getting a beautiful image that's very smooth, and I'm hearing the audio. Oh. So it's and I can pause it. All of these things are using bandwidth, but it's something that we don't put a limit on. But in this case, it's not this is where you do want to share rich content. But otherwise, screen sharing is really best done just for these types of activities when I want to show somebody how to do something. Please do not share a video through screen sharing like I'm doing here, because you're not going to get the best experience. You're not going to hear the audio. To do screen or to share a video, either load it into your meeting room, or if you are using YouTube videos, then by all means, there's a fantastic app for sharing YouTube videos, and you can. There's a free trial for 30 days, and then but it is a great way to stream videos. You can, if you have Breakout videos or Kaltura videos, again, there are pods that will stream. eThink Training does a great job of creating these pods that will stream videos from different sources into your meeting room, and they're another way to share video. But again, loading content into your room is a great way to conserve bandwidth.
Great, thanks, Peter. And that actually was going to be my last question regarding bandwidth, so you hit it spot on. At the top of the hour here, so I actually just wanted to bring us over to to the Q&A layout and point out a few useful links for attendees. You know, you're more than welcome to browse over to any of the links that we've got. We've got our best practices blog, upcoming Connect webinars, daily live trainings. You know, the newest one is probably our customer newsletter that's going to be going out in the next couple of weeks. I encourage you to sign up to receive that newsletter. And, you know, a reminder, we did record today's session, and we'll send out an email with the recording link post-event. Again, thanks for joining us, and we had wonderful, wonderful questions today. We hope you got out of this as much as we did from the Connect team, and we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.